It's a Guy Jeans podcast.
My guest today is Nestor Barajas, who is a member of the SWAT team of the Bakersfield Police Department. On this episode, we talk about how he has always wanted to be a cop since he was a kid, and how it was on his first day on the job as a police officer. We talk about gangs, drugs, and crime in Bakersfield, as well as nationally. We also talk about the current catalytic converter problem across America, and mine, believe it or not, being stolen at the Bakersfield Mall at 10 a.m. It's crazy. We also talk about his company, Kern River Leather, that makes beautiful leather products, and the importance and therapy of the outdoors and fly fishing, and what that does for him. I'm stoked to have him on the podcast, as most of us, including myself, have no clue the amount of danger that members of law enforcement put themselves in every single day, and the amount of crime that goes on in our cities across America. I'm super thankful to him and the people in law enforcement for what they do every single day. So here he is, folks, Nestor Barajas. Nestor, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. So I wanted to have you on my podcast. One is we're friends, and we do some business together with your Kern River Leather, but you're also in the Bakersfield Police Department, and there's a lot of people that are really interested in what you do. And so let's start from the beginning. Like, how did you get into becoming a police officer, and did you grow up in Bakersfield?
Yeah, so I grew up actually in the Central Coast in Nipomo, near Pismo Beach, for those that don't know the area very well, but probably about 15 minutes south of that. We moved to Bakersfield, I want to say roughly 2003, 2004. My dad worked in road construction, worked in the Bay Area, and ultimately would travel back and forth between there and Nipomo. So ended up transferring over, and then that's how we ended up in Bakersfield. Cool. But I've been a police officer. This year's hitting 10-year mark.
No way.
And
did you know that you wanted to be a police officer since you were a little kid?
Yeah.
No way.
So ever since since I can remember at least, I wanted to be police officer. I've always been into guns and shooting and playing cops and robber and whatnot. And ever since I was a kid, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on the SWAT team and chase bad guys. And you've reached that goal. You're in SWAT, right? Yeah. It came by a lot sooner than I anticipated, just based on research and everything else. I thought I was going to have to be a cop for 10 plus years before I could get on the SWAT team, and I've been pretty fortunate enough to do some pretty cool stuff and be part of some pretty cool units. Yeah. So how does that work? You gotta go through like the academy, and then you graduate from the academy, and then you go out and you're a rookie, and then you spend a lot of time doing that in the field as well. And then does somebody ask you to become a SWAT team member, or do you like apply for it, or how does that work? So normally, it varies as far as like the details for the department you might be part of, like for example LAPD or LASO and stuff like that. But pretty much everybody, doesn't matter if you want to be a detective or if you want to be a captain or a chief of police, you're gonna have to start your career as a rookie, as a patrolman. So the first step is basically going into the police academy. And that's roughly about 6 months period. Prior to that, it's like another 6 to 7 month period that's basically background checks and everything else. Then once you clear background check and you get your interview to join the actual police academy, then that's when you join the police academy. And then you get out of the police academy and you get assigned a field training officer, which they call the FTO. You go through the FTO process, and that's usually another 2 to 4 months roughly. And then you pass that, and you get released into the wild all by yourself. And really, it's like a little kid where you get left alone for the first time, and you don't know what to do with yourself. And were you nervous? Oh yeah, I had no idea what the heck I was doing, and it's like, holy crap, I'm a cop, right? And I'm out in the streets, and I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
That must be a trip.
Yeah, it's almost surreal. And looking back, that this is my 10-year mark, I was actually thinking about that. Holy cow!
Do you remember your first call and stuff?
Yeah. So my first call. It doesn't always happen like that. It just, I guess, some people they call just crap magnets and whatnot. And my first call was actually a home invasion robbery. It wasn't a burglary because a lot of people say, "Oh, I got robbed," and it's not really the case. They got burglarized. But anyways, so it was something to do with narcotics or some sort of stash house that was happening. But basically, they had like this Hispanic guy taking care of this stash house. Didn't speak a lick of English, but me being Hispanic, fluent in Spanish, he's like, "You know Spanish, right?" My field training officer. Yeah. Oh, it's your lucky day. We're going to this one. Oh, okay, cool. It's a home invasion robbery that happened right now. I'm like, no way. Like, I've never seen this. This is like unreal to me. I was pretty sheltered, especially living in the Central Coast, especially when I came to Bakersfield. But anyways, going back to that, we get there. The guy's like, face is full of blood. They're untying him still. Like, had just got called in. Oh. So they had beat this guy into telling him where the drugs were stashed. And they robbed him, essentially. It was for drugs. Yeah. But nevertheless, owed money.
So he was a drug dealer that...
He was, allegedly. Yeah. Taking care of these drugs, these said drugs. But he was honest with us of what happened. And so they took his phone. They took money from his wallet. So it's still part of he got robbed. Yeah. So... Yeah, I was just in disbelief with that. It's like, holy crap, this is actually real. This is really happening. Yeah. And it's just, even living in Bakersfield, you don't see a lot of what truly happens on the streets. And you get basically what a lot of people say with police and fire and stuff like that. You got a front row seat to the best show on earth. And that's real life.
Are you seeing... or is there a lot of home invasions in Bakersfield?
They don't happen too often, like a true home invasion.
Which means like they come in and take over.
Correct. Like that's usually a home invasion would be where somebody's at the house, but then you have the true like with force. Yeah. So you got a burglary where people go or might be sleeping, and it's considered a home invasion, but they're not really confronting. Where I see it as a true home invasion is where they're doing a takeover, pistol whip, or pointing guns or knives or whatever it might be. But we have had several where people get broken into during the night and they're asleep and they take a few things or they take things and they take off. Yeah. But then you have those true home invasions where we've had several of those.
Break down the door and get in there.
Yeah, so we have... so several years back, I was in the gang unit. I did 5 years in the gang unit. And that one was terrible. That was a true takeover home invasion.
By the gangs?
By the gangs, yeah. It was black gangs. And crazy, the guy that... one of the guys that did that and that actually ultimately pulled the trigger and shot this old lady. It was an older lady in her like late 80s. Her son had a safe in the house. So I think it turned out somehow like one of the caretakers was linked to this gang and said, hey, there's a safe at this house, and brought these guys there obviously at night, and she had her son's safe. It wasn't her safe, it was her son's safe. They break in and they pretty much beat her, this old lady, into try to giving up the safe. The same combo doesn't know it, so they end up shooting her in the leg. Still doesn't give it because she doesn't know it. I mean, how else can she give it up? So they end up stealing this whole safe. They leave her for dead. And she's there probably like 12, 15 hours until she, I could be wrong on the exact detail, but I think she ends up remembering she has one of those life alert and she presses it.
Oh,
and,
nice.
The EMS shows up and police, and that's how they find her in the hallway and pull the blood. And we ended up finding out the guy, who he was and everything. He went to jail.
Yeah.
He's going to probably be there for the rest of his life. But, I mean, just stuff like that where it does happen. That was all over the news. That was several years back. But that guy that did that home invasion when I was in the gang unit, well, even when that happened, I was in the gang unit, but we almost got into shooting with that guy where me and my partner were patrolling the area, and we see them, they see us, and we pretty much get trained into when you get scared, that's when you stop, find a reason to stop some of these guys, and it's just a lot of the nonverbal stuff that goes on. So anyways, we flip around, and it's about to get dark, pull him over, and he ended up having a gun on him that day with some another gangster. It was two of them. They were in the back seat, and there was two females in the front, and we ended up pulling him over.
And you're with somebody?
Yeah, it was my partner.
Oh, okay.
So usually gang unit is running 2-man units.
Yeah.
So we pull him over, and we see the rear passenger side door pops open. He's like, oh, he's going to run. And I'm telling my partner, and he's already has his door popped open, and I'm driver. So they kind of slow roll it, and we're near a park, and he's going to run. So my partner jumps out, and he runs up over to him, and then throw my car in park. Then they stop, and I run up on my side, but for whatever reason, everybody's focused on my side. So I'm doing all the commands, and I'm already up on the car. They're all now looking at my partner, and I'm up on the driver's side, and I'm shining my light, and they're probably overwhelmed with the lights and freaking out and whatnot. And I look at the front, so I see two females, and I don't feel much of a threat.
Yeah.
And as I'm shining my light, I look at the back, and my eyes just goes directly to the guy as he's on his left hand's going down below his thigh, and I see the grip of a pistol.
No way.
Yeah, and so immediately I'm like, gun, and because he's looking at my partner, he's like, no, I got my hands up over here, and with his other hand he's going down to probably.
Gnarly.
And I just yell out gun, and I draw my gun and point in at him, and get your hands up, and everybody gets their hands up, and don't move. And I was like, you will get shot, and I was pretty close to shooting him, and luckily he threw his hands up. All of them did, and more units get there, because usually with the gang unit, we saturate areas where we know they're hanging out and whatnot, and so within maybe a minute or so, we had another 4 or 5 guys, so we pull them all out, and sure as hell, there's a loaded pistol stolen and everything. But
was he a felon as well?
Yeah. So he was a regular for us.
So he's gone for a while.
Well, this happened a few months before that home invasion robbery.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. Just crazy stuff where it's a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
That do these things.
How many, what a lot of people don't know, including myself, until, I moved to Kernville from Ventura. I didn't realize how ginormous Bakersfield is. And how many people are there? 400,000 or something?
Well, when you look at it as a city itself, I believe it's somewhere in the 500,000-600,000. But when you put when you put the county unincorporated areas as Bakersfield as a whole, you're pushing 1 million people.
Really? It's crazy, man.
Yeah, and that's not including Arvin, Shafter, and stuff like that.
Wow.
So I mean, Bakersfield has really grown significantly. Where I'm sure you've seen it now. From the mouth of the canyon to the southwest of Bakersfield, it's going to take you nearly an hour to get there.
Yeah, that's crazy. A lot of people don't realize how big it is. You know? And so with me saying that, you're probably an expert on this. And so how many gangs are there total, do you think, in Bakersfield? Is there sections where they're at, and then little sub gangs?
Yeah, you have your traditional boundaries for the gangs, and then you have your non-traditional areas, like what you would call like a common areas, which you start getting to the like west side of town, where you have like large complex, like apartment complex areas. One of those like Stein and New Stein and Bell Terrace. There's a really large area of apartment complexes there. So you'll get people from different gangs that just live there. I mean, they're at the end of the day, they're just people like everyone else. So they have to live somewhere, and sometimes they don't live within what you would call the traditional boundaries of their gangs.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it just depends. I mean, like with the black gangs, there's black gangs, there's Asian gangs, there's white gangs, Hispanic gangs, and then you got your hybrid gangs and stuff like that, where and you got like little crews, what they call them, tag bangers and stuff like that, or burglary crews, robbery crews and stuff like that.
That are all associated with those bigger gangs? Or
sometimes.
Okay.
And the way, I mean, usually when it comes to like gang stuff, again, depending on, a lot of it depends on race when it comes to gangs. So you have like the Hispanic gangs. So a lot of people don't know, Delano is actually the dividing line between the North and the South, or the Southerners and Northerners.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it'd be where you would see the norteños and the sureños, basically. Delano is that dividing line for California.
Okay.
There are exceptions, like everything. So you do find norteños in Bakersfield. You will find them, just like you'll find sureños north of Delano. However, the traditional boundaries is that. But yeah, so the easiest way to explain it is all 90% of the Hispanic gangs are going to in Bakersfield are Sureños. So you have, it's like a hierarchy, like an umbrella. So the Sureño membership is an umbrella that covers these gangs. Like, so in Bakersfield, you have like the Barrio Bakers, the Colonia Bakers, the West Side Bakers, East Side Bakers, the East Bakers, Okie Bakers, and then you got like just these random little.
What are the Okie Bakers?
So the Okie Bakers, their boundaries is one of the smaller ones, but they're pretty violent when they do pop up and start doing stuff. But their traditional boundaries are like south of Cottonwood, south of the 58, and that little county pocket there, which is now city.
Okay.
That whole area right there's like their traditional boundaries. So like anytime you see like what is it? OK? No, is it OBKS? Yeah. OBKS is the Okie Bakers.
Okay.
So when you see like tattoos or tagging, you'll just on my way here, I was jumping up on the freeway right there at what is it, Chester, and the 58 area. The 58 sign right below it says VBKS. That's the Barrio Bakers. And then the Barrio Bakers is like, you can consider it from like H all the way to the railroad tracks off of MLK. And then everything past those railroad tracks, east, north of Brundage, is where the Colonia starts, the Colonia Bakers. I don't know if you ever heard of the Colonia restaurant.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still open. I haven't been by there in a while, but that's part of the Colonia. But the Colonia is probably the biggest one just because of it's like in the county area. So even within the gangs, you have subsets. So it's just a bunch of cliques and subsets of subsets. And,
I was going to say.
So when you see like the Mexican, or when you hear the the Mexican mafia and stuff like that, that's like more of a prison gang, but it's still the ultimate, like it's at the top of the pyramid type of thing. And then it goes to the Sureños, and then from the Sureños you have all these street gangs. So
it's interesting stuff, man.
Yeah, it gets really interesting. Of like it's basically just this big criminal organization that has some structure to it. The same thing with the Norteños. You got some. So with the Sureños and all that, you got the MA or the Mexican Mafia, and then with the Norteños, you got the NF, the Nuestra Familia. Our family is what it translates to. So you have also with the Sureños the numbers. So you see the Campbell, which is the Aztec numbering. You got the one line, I believe, is 5. Each line is 5, and then the dots are 1s. So with the Sureños, all the Sureño gangs are going to, when you see 13, it's basically paying homage to the Mexican Mafia, the M. So it's the 13th letter in the alphabet. Okay. And with the Norteños, when you see 14, or the Campbell with 4 dots. The Mexican Mafia or the Sureños, you see the Campbell with the 3 dots. So it's like 2 lines, and then you got 3 dots like that.
I thought, for some reason, I always thought the 13 had to do with like the 805 or something, you know. So for some reason, I just thought that, but I know I see it all over the place,
right?
You know?
So I remember growing up, I'd see gangsters, but like you don't know. I mean, you're naive to it.
Totally.
You see like the 3 dots on them, and it's like, oh, what does that mean? And like, oh, that means my crazy life. And it's like, that does not mean that. That's literally linked to gangs, and it's Sureños, which is the 3. Yeah. Which would be the 13 essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then each gang has their. You start seeing hats. Where traditionally it's like a baseball team or a football team, you know, the baseball hats. So when you go to Bakersfield, there's no Kansas City Royals or the Kansas City team. It's Kern County. So it's not can I get the Kansas City hat? No, it's can I get the Kern County hat? Because that's what, to the locals in Bakersfield, Kern County, that's what that hat stands for. It's Kern County.
No way.
But then you start looking at like the Washington Nationals. You'll start seeing West Side Bakers wearing that, or also West Side Crips wearing that. And then like they adopt just these crazy things. Like I've seen some with the Superman sign, Southside Bakers. They'll be rocking the Superman sign. But then you got rival gangs that like are Eastside Bakers. Oh, I like that idea. Instead of an S, I'm going to put an E. So it's a Superman sign, but it has an E in it. In both black and Hispanics, I've seen it in. And then there was also in the West Side Crips, there was a guy that was killed, a Muslim guy who's part of that gang, was killed by a rival guy, and they used the New York Yankees hat. Okay. For him, because I won't say his name, but it's his moniker started with a Y, and it was a 2-word name, so it's Y and N, and that's what they use nowadays. So like you look at it, and it's like to anybody, any normal person, it's New York Yankees, but when you're in a certain place of town, and you're hanging around a certain people, it doesn't stand for that. It stands for something else.
Well, I know that from talking to other cops that the gangs end up giving some of the cops nicknames. Is that right? They
give us nicknames, and you start learning some of them, or they know you. They just call you by your last name, and some of them you end up being, you're cordial with, and then there's some guys that they just don't like you, and you don't like them, or there's just all kinds of just bizarre stuff that's just not it's just not your normal everyday life. Like you're like, what? No way, that would never happen here. It's like, that guy right there, he's a gangster.
What a trip. I wanted to tell you a story. I went to the Bakersfield Mall. And so I needed to get a power cord for my phone. And so I went into the Apple store, but it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, And I parked my car right outside the doors there, and I was pretty close to the doors, but I was actually, parked away from the other cars and stuff, but not too far away. And then I walked into the Apple store at 10 in the morning when they open. Went in there, purchased my charger, and then I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes at the most. And then I come out and I get into my truck, and my truck sounds like a monster truck. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I got out of my truck, and my truck's kind of lifted, so I'm sure it was really easy for them. And I looked under there, and the catalytic converter had been taken out of there.
Off.
Yeah. So then I'm like, driving around, everybody's looking at me, and I call up my friend George Claroux at Claroux Tire, and I say, hey George, I need a new catalytic converter. Where do I go? And he's like, I'll go to this such and such muffler shop, And so I go there, and I pull up, and I go inside, and there's a line of people that have had their catalytic converters stolen as well. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God. Well, for one, the guy at the muffler shop is making a killing. I'm sure that the person who is buying the catalytic converters and then reselling them is making a killing. And then the guys that are stealing the catalytic converters, because I didn't know anything about catalytic converters until I got mine stolen. And then I, of course, did the research, and it literally takes them maybe 3 minutes or less to take your catalytic converter. And so I was like, oh my God. And so then I did more research, and then some catalytic converters are worth more money because they have certain metals in them and that sort of thing. But now I have a plate underneath there, where they can't saw it off or whatever.
Or at least makes it harder.
Harder, yes. So are you guys seeing a lot of that in Bakersfield? Is it that pretty common?
It's everywhere.
Yeah,
it's everywhere. And the thing, when it comes to catalytic converter thefts and just thefts in general and crime in general, a lot of that goes back to what I think it was 2014, 2015, somewhere around there when Prop 47 went through and AB 109 started coming through. Basically the higher ups of the state and whatnot, and it was also voted into it. So I guess that's what was voted in. But
it's just, you're talking about the laws that make it easier on criminals.
Yeah. So they sell it as a nonviolent offenders. So ultimately, that's where a lot of this is stemming from. That and drug use, methamphetamine is hell of a drug, and that, and now fentanyl.
Right.
It just, what it creates is sad and just unbelievable too. A lot of times some of the people that are stuck in this realm of drug use, everything goes out, morality, right and wrong, there's nothing safe.
Right.
Not even their mom or grandma, nothing.
Yeah.
If they could steal from them, they will steal just to get more.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the ones that are on the ground doing these things are tweakers.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones doing the stealing. They're not the ones making the killing, because they're just trying to get another buck to buy some more meth or fentanyl.
Right.
Or pay for their hotel room for the next night. You go to any of the motels, if you're ever bored and you just want to see some just another world, go to any of the crappy motels in town, anywhere on the Oak corridor, Union corridor, and just sit there.
Crazy.
And just watch. Turn off your car and just watch, and you'll be like, what the heck?
Oh, really?
It's like Twilight Zone. But anyways,
I've seen that.
I could go on so many tangents with all these things, but that's the street level. So you got, it's not nobody special doing the thefts. It's just the next bite of food or the next bite of drugs that they're trying to get in these people. So where it all starts is where do they get the tools? Well, I'll tell you, go sit at the parking lot, Home Depot and Lowe's, and you'll see people stealing left and right all day long.
Really?
If they're in jail and they get out and that's what they're going to do, you'll see it all. They're going to go to the store and they're going to steal it. First thing they do. And security can't stop them anymore. I've seen some change in the last year where it's starting to kind of change because there's so much loss happening that the stores have no other option but either sink or swim. So they're going to have to protect their merchandise because they just let it go.
Yeah.
But anyways, they'll go steal a Sawzall. They'll go in. I actually went with a nephew of mine to Home Depot just a few weeks ago. We literally had just got off the truck and it was like, I saw them. I just felt it. It's like, how much do you want to bet those guys are going in to steal? No way. It's like, let's go watch them. So we start following them and they beelined it straight to the tool section and freaking sure as shit, start loading up their bags and they got some tools and beeline it out.
And no one stopped them.
I was like, hey, let's go tell the
security.
Or we told one of the store members and security started following them, but they had already stuffed their bags and they took off.
Yeah.
But it happens all the time. I'm sure some of the people listening have seen it at some point.
For sure.
But that's where it starts. And all they need is a Sawzall, really.
It's so simple.
Yeah. Sawzall and a $3 blade and a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And they'll go on their meth binges at night and they'll hit 20, 30 cars. And it's like that.
Yeah.
And then you got some violent ones that's happened where people come and confront them and they get shot or they get shot at. But there's so much of just everything that just lawlessness that's going on. Morality, right and wrong is just gone. It's crazy. It's sad.
I see it on TV as well. These gangs going in and just ripping off full stores and just somebody's going to get out of there, with a full hands of clothes or whatever it is. But it seems like it's just getting worse, right?
Yeah.
In the last 10 years that you've been a policeman, have you seen it gotten worse, do you think? Or
it's gotten worse. So it all started at least because you go to some of these other states and it's happening in some of these other states, but and you go to some other ones and you don't see that.
Yeah.
And with California, it's kind of the leader in just being different. Mm-hmm. We'll say that. But with going back to Prop 47, AB 109, we mentioned we were talking about that a while back. But basically, I'll give you the same analogy I gave you the other day. But I go in, I'm a bad guy or I'm a gangster, whatever it may be, or even regular Joe Blow that has a drug issue, hypothetically speaking, right? And I have a gun. And you confront me, I shoot you. You don't die. However, in the eyes of the law, that's assault with a deadly weapon, attempt murder. You could take somebody to jail for attempt murder and assault with a deadly weapon. And if you're already a convicted felon, you could take them for a slew of gun charges, all kinds of felonies, right? So I take, police comes, they take me to jail for the slew of it all. Attempt murder, assault with a deadly weapon, felon in possession of firearm, felon in possession of ammunition, possession of a ghost gun or maybe it was a stolen gun. And I took the serial number off. I did all of that. Fast forward a little bit, I go to jail and I bail out. Mm-hmm. I have my hearing, whatever, and I'm going through the process, and now the DA is having 10 other cases this week of the same thing with 10 other guys or gals or whatever it may be. And I'm overwhelmed, or that DA is overwhelmed and says, okay, well, I'm going to offer you take the plea deal. I was in jail for, let's say, a couple months, and then I was able to bail out because some family or somebody was able to help me out. And I was already in jail for 2 months. And they offer me possession of a stolen firearm, misdemeanor, because the gun was under $950. So that makes it a misdemeanor. Anything over $950 is considered grand theft or possession of stolen property, which would make it a felony. So anything over $900 is a felony. Anything under that is a misdemeanor. So all these thefts that are happening in Walmart and all that, as long as they keep it under $950, It's a misdemeanor. So,
whoa,
you can go and do that.
Even if it's a felon?
Yeah. Yeah, like a lot of these thefts, I mean, it's considered petty theft.
Yeah.
When you think petty theft, what do you steal? A candy bar? It's like, no, you could go steal a TV and still be petty theft. So it used to be $450, but then with inflation and everything else, they bumped it up to $950. So pre like 2015, because I think that's when a lot of the things changed. And as time went on, more things started getting implemented. When I first started, if we saw, or if we came across somebody who was in possession of 0.1 gram, 0.01 of a gram, which is like tiny little piece of meth, we could take him for a felony.
Yeah.
And if the DA offered him a year, I'll take it, because if not, it's 2 years. So I'll take it. So all of that normally a lot of these your common people that were stealing, breaking into houses, breaking into stores, stealing from stores to keep up with their drug addiction were in jail, or they were revolving jail, getting clean, coming out, and then falling off the wagon again, and then doing it again, and then going back to jail. So it's kind of like more people in jail, yes. Mm-hmm. But that was where the catalyst was, where normally you wouldn't see it, or you wouldn't see all the transients that you would see now on the streets, or all the crazies just walking around, just punching the air. You wouldn't see that just even a few years ago, because those people were in jail. Mm-hmm. And that, and some more potent drugs that just fry brains. But now they're out, and they're not being taken to jail. And then also it got even worse, COVID and post-COVID. Yeah. And the jails couldn't keep up with it. And they said it was to a point where you literally needed to shoot somebody
to go to jail.
To go to jail. Like a lot of stuff, we could not take people to jail during COVID or post-COVID for a while. For almost nothing. We were just citing people out, and like, what the heck? How are we citing them out on this? Wow. And it's like, we can't take them. Sorry.
What a trip.
And so we were just giving people tickets or promise to appear to court. And you run across people that have 15, 20, 30 warrants. Yeah. Bench warrants. And most of them turn into misdemeanors.
Trip out.
So anyways, going back to that, you have a lot of violent people who are out in the streets. And going back, sorry, I keep going off on tangents, but
okay.
They offer me a plea deal of the misdemeanor. And so I take the plea deal with time served. So on paper, I was only arrested, or I went to jail for possession of stolen property. Not even possession of a stolen firearm, or possession of a firearm, or carrying a concealed firearm, or anything like that. It's just possession of stolen property. Or it might have even been concealing a weapon in public, which is still a misdemeanor anyways.
So
me shooting you,
yeah,
or me almost killing you, or trying to kill you, none of that is on paper, like the true reality of what happened. Mm-hmm. What's on paper is just possession of stolen property. So then, when you look at, when you see these politicians, no, we're only allowing people who are nonviolent offenders to leave. Like, this guy was convicted of stolen property. Yeah. But well, look into the case. What actually happened in this case? Oh, well, he went on a pursuit. He robbed a guy. He pistol whipped this guy, carjacked this guy, and finally crashed, and then he was taken to jail, but he had some stolen stuff, so we offered him a deal. And that's what he got. So on paper, all these violent offenders are nonviolent.
Are you guys finding that the jails are like way too full? Are they like, and they're like, and maybe that's kind of like what's going on? They're just like, oh, we can't.
It's not necessarily that they're full. There's not enough people to maintain.
Okay.
There's a lot less, like, for example, here in Kern County, you have your county jails, and then you have your state jails, and then your federal prisons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it just depends. I mean, most of the time you're going to be, if you get convicted of a federal crime, you're more than likely going to go to a federal prison, which is a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
if you go anything like state, which is most of the stuff that you get taken into, you might go to county jail, depending on the crime that you do. So you could go to Lerdo, which is right off the Lerdo Highway, and you could be there, or you could go to Corcoran, or it just depends on the severity of the crime and where you go and what you're getting convicted of. So there's not county jail wise, like a lot of these like meth users that, like, if we would pop them for possession of meth and they'd go for a felony, they'd more than likely they're going to county jail.
Yeah.
A year, 2 years. They're going for more time. That's usually when they transfer them over to like the state jails and stuff like that. And then you also have the juveniles, and that's a whole nother thing that's changed dramatically.
Really?
Even more in the last few years too, where if they're a juvenile, we can't even talk to them.
Oh no!
A lot of times, and so these gangs catch on to all these things, and we've listened. We've done like wiretaps on gangs and stuff like that, and you hear them and they talk about it, and then like it's just insane. Like where you have even women, older women, or just that are part of the gang, or they're in that life where face value, they're like just a normal person and they hate the police, and they're out in public, they're shaming the police, they're doing this, they're doing that. The police did this to my son. But then behind closed doors, they're part of the criminal enterprise.
Yeah.
They're moving guns, they're moving dope, they're moving all that.
Trip out.
Because they know that we normally deal with the men or the gangs and stuff like that. And so they use a lot of the older women or women to help along.
Are you guys seeing, well, how's the morale like of you guys? And another question to that is, are you guys seeing more police officers signing up or less?
Ooh, that's a multi-faceted one. You have your chargers, but at the same, like hard chargers who like to do police work.
Yeah.
But oftentimes you go too hard or you try too hard and you end up getting in trouble.
Yeah.
For trying to do your job and go after bad guys. Because, I mean, you go after enough bad guys, you're going to get into something.
Yeah.
And people don't like us. There's people that don't like us, and they unfortunately take other people's word as gospel, and oftentimes it's not the case.
Sure.
And so morale has gotten lower. Recruiting has gotten tougher. We've actually had collectively it has gotten where we found that these younger generations, I'm pretty young myself, but younger generations, even more than myself, aren't as physically inclined as previous generations. I'm also part of the range cadre, so like we start trying to, like when we're doing range stuff, we start trying to talk about like postures and stuff like that, and you're trying to find a common ground so they can find like an idea on how to, like, say for example, posture. You ask them, look, well, have you ever been on a skateboard? You're like, you know how you stand on a skateboard? Try to do something like that. You know how you kind of lean forward on a skateboard, like when you're shooting shotgun and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I can see that.
Sure.
And so they fix their posture. Or like, well, what about boxing? Have you ever boxed? No. Okay. Snowboard? No. Surfed? No. Have you ever been like running? No. What? I play video games. Right. And then you're just like, well, you lost me. So you kind of just revert to something as simple as like, you just push them. Yeah. And okay, see how you just stopped yourself now that I pushed you, or how you got, that's how we start.
Interesting.
Start finding stuff like that. But anyways, that has become tougher with the physical side, where people were having a lot more trouble getting people to pass the physical side of the academy, and also what society has created in the last few years, especially like 2020 with the riots. Hell of a year for police. Mm-hmm. It sucks that poor decision making by some officers is all of us.
Right.
The actions of one, unfortunately, it's all of us. So it sucks, and it's been a detriment for us in that aspect, because there's people that would want to be cops, men and women, and they're scared because of the climate. Like, I don't want to go out there and say something or do something wrong, and then get indicted for something, for doing my job. And
scary.
It's scary. 2020 was crazy.
It was.
It was crazy with the riots. We had a little bit of rioting happening in Bakersfield. Thank God it wasn't anything like L.A. But we had it. I was saying deaf. That's where deafness with me, needing the volume a little bit higher. That's kind of where it started.
What happened?
So I'm going on pushing 5 years on the S.W.A.T team, and so during the riots, we were kind of like on the front lines, but behind the main line, and we were basically their overwatch, making sure everything was like going smooth as it could go, I guess. We were allowing them to protest, the protesters and everything. But then there's a catalyst. There's truly people that were being sent from other places as instigators to get the people riled up and get them violent and get them to start doing more. It's that's like a whole nother craziness. But anyways, they started getting violent one of those nights. I think it might have been like the second night of the riots, that like where it started getting crazy. And at one point of the night, we're like right there on Truxton and Chester. There's actually a video, on YouTube from the news that they play it. It was, I think it starts with like, it was the night that changed it all or something like that. But it shows what happened. We're in the front line and they start throwing rocks, like golf ball plus, like softball sized rocks.
And you're in the front line?
And we're in the front lines,
Damn.
And so they start chucking it at us, and we still haven't done anything. We're just holding the line. We're not
you guys getting hit by those things?
So we had, some of the guys had shields, so a few guys did get hit with the rocks.
I bet.
And prior to that, the line was, or the skirmish line for us was at I Street in Truxton, and the protesters were right across the street, same intersection, but we were on one side of the street and they were on the other side of the street. And so we had the whole intersection that was empty. So
what fueled this protest? I can't remember.
That was Floyd.
Floyd, okay, got it.
That was what fueled that in Minneapolis. And then it started with somebody chucking those mortars, those fireworks, those aerial fireworks. Chucked it right in the middle of the intersection, and just the whole intersection just blew up.
Whoa!
We're like, what the heck? They're starting to throw freaking bombs essentially at us.
That's scary, man.
So we're in our full SWAT getup, but all we have is some of the guys have shields, just plastic regular shields, like no ballistic or anything. And but we have our ballistic helmets and eye protection, ear protection, and then the riot guys had their riot control stuff. So fast forward, the riot guys pushed the protest line to Chester on Truxton, and when we're there, that's when they start throwing the rocks, and then next thing you see a freaking, it's like a grenade just going in the air. It's like almost like out of a movie. It's like slow motion. And I remember just looking at it, and I see the fuse burning. Oh. And I'm just looking at it, and it's probably like 10 feet above me. And I'm like about to yell like bomb. And because you're trying to process it all, and you got people freaking everywhere, and just crazy. And I mean, you're scared. I mean, it's scary. It's that was a scary time being on that.
So what happened with that thing? It blew up?
So yeah, it ended up falling, and it landed like from here to there, which is like 10 feet from me. Uh-huh. And I had like ear protection similar to what we're wearing right now, and I had them unplugged. I had them like they have like an open position, so there's something like that. Uh-huh.
Oh no!
And so I turn around, and as I'm like turning around, freaking thing goes off, and that thing was like, I mean, it's those aerial ones. I mean, they shoot out like, I don't know, 50, 60 feet out or more with the explosion. You know, like those big, like the big aerial fireworks.
Yeah,
it was one of those.
Okay,
but
damn.
Usually when they launch them, they put them in the tubes and they launch up. And what they did was, instead of that, lit it and chucked it at us. So it went off, and just big ass explosion goes off right there.
And it's like sending more stuff out, right?
Yeah. And then it has like the more fire everywhere and everything. And like, so you kind of, it's like a shock. You just got blown up basically. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? And like, you go into like fight or flight mode, and that's when like everybody in the line are like, all right, screw it, we're pushing these guys out. And that's when that kicked off the unlawful assembly. It was no longer a protest, it was an unlawful assembly, and that's when we started grabbing people. Yeah. And we started pushing people back, and if you're still there, if we grabbed you, you're going to jail. And that's when it kind of like their lines broke, and a lot of people ran, but they were still chucking stuff at like rocks and whatnot. And then we started pushing them back. And so the people we grabbed, hook them up, and they were going to jail. And then we started pushing them, and we start kind of getting our lines back in order. And all the SWAT guys, we kind of went into the shadows because they were still there chucking stuff at us. And we were along the courthouse on the south side of the road. And we basically made an L shape on the protesters and said, if the ones that still hadn't ran or hadn't gotten arrested, you're going to go to jail now. So then that's when we went on the offensive mode. And we came out of the shadows and started getting people and chasing others. And we got a few of the ones that were throwing the rocks because we could clearly see them chucking the rocks.
Oh, cool.
And we chased them all over downtown. And like it was like it turned into like Leroy Jenkins, just
really
go and grab somebody.
Was your adrenaline just like off the hook?
It was off the hook on that one. I mean,
you can't.
It was like you're scared and you're pissed at the same time. You're like, what the heck? Like, I didn't do anything to you.
So that's one of my questions too. I've talked to other people about that, and I've experienced it as well. But like when you're like adrenaline is so high, it's almost like you don't feel anything, and you see like you're red, and it's like, and like for police officers, it must be like, like you're running after these guys, or you're on a high-speed chase, and the guy's not pulling over and he just hit another person or whatever, and you're like totally like pissed, but also in mad and angry, and you're trying to get this guy, and it's like, how do you not like haul off and like work this guy over? You know what I mean? It's because the adrenaline is so there. It's like, how do you control that? I mean, a lot of them don't, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, like we're all just human as well.
Totally.
I've been, I guess, depending on how you want to see it, fortunate or unfortunate, to have been exposed to a lot of high stress situations, like crazy, just adrenaline dumps, like being in the gang unit, where people would ask me like, "What's the craziest thing you've seen?" Yeah, it's like this week.
Yeah.
Like it's to the point where I lost track of what, like, it just happens so much in a frequent place like Bakersfield. Like when they say, who's been here, we go to training classes. Who here has been in a shooting or in a foot pursuit or in a car pursuit? And then there's a few guys from Bakersfield and like, oh, we've all been in vehicle pursuits. We were just before we got here.
Right. Yeah.
Or
you guys are in it, man.
Yeah. Or like, we just hit a search warrant yesterday or like this or that. We just knocked down this door and it's just like, it's something that it's just so for a lot, not everybody,
right.
But for certain people, it's like, it happens a lot and you just get used to it. And a lot of it is just another day. And like being in the gang unit and stuff like that, it was literally every day, your foot chase, search warrants, knocking down doors, foot pursuits, vehicle pursuits, shootings, murders, stabbings, all kinds of stuff. And you're just another day. And you kind of get used to it.
Do the days go by fast for you?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, doing all that stuff.
Where during the day, like in the gang unit, you have to go do gang experts. So you're going to court and you're testifying as a gang expert. And then 5 o'clock comes along, court's done, but now you got to go do your gang stuff on the streets. And now jock up and get your patrol uniform on, and now you're a gang officer hitting the streets. And so you're going and responding to shootings, murders, stabbings, robberies, all that type of stuff. And you're doing that. And even patrolmen too, sometimes. Like they'll go to court all day, and then right after court, you're going all this crazy thing, or you're training and you're doing this, and then you go to court, and then you go, as soon as you leave court, you get in a vehicle pursuit, or it's just, there's a lot of up and down, and not all the time, but a lot of it is you just get used to it. You get used to it, and you learn to control your emotions a lot. And for me personally, the way I see it is, if I get mad, I lost. Especially with a lot of the people you come across, that's what their goal is, just to piss you off, and it brings warm and fuzzy to me when I don't allow that to happen, and they get mad that I can't get mad. And so then I'm like, I won.
Oh, nice.
When you just don't let them get to you, because there's dudes that they'll be talking all this smack. Yeah. And you just treat them with some decency. And then after they're done, just be like, man, I was an asshole. I'm sorry. Yeah. A lot of them, you do get apologies after.
And you guys, like some of the things that you guys see, like we don't see, like you guys basically see more of the filth of the earth, of humans. And so there must be like, some kind of like organization that, how there's like, like soldiers have like post-traumatic stress disorder, and firemen have, that friend of mine, he's got Hold the Line, that kind of stuff. Is there stuff for you guys, like anything like that?
I was actually, years ago, I was talking to Sergio, because, bringing the fishing thing into it, that's when I started getting a lot more into fishing when I was in the gang unit, because I was having issues with, like, this stuff you're seeing, the stress that you got to deal with, and everything else, like the just crap you see. Fishing brought some peace for me.
Nice.
Absolutely. Where you see, I guess what you would call the normal people, they see it, you tell them, oh, it's the killer Kern. Yeah. Well, to them, it's killing people, but to me, it's killing all the bad,
Nice.
It's
awesome.
cleaning me
I love
out.
it.
So it's been, for me, a lot of my ideas for my business, going on and doing my side hustles and everything else. A lot of it has stemmed out of being out just in nature on the river and just having some cleansing,
Absolutely. Church,
yeah. And just being out here. Yeah. Some people's like, I want to go fishing with you. I don't. I just want to be by myself. I need some alone time. But there isn't, and there isn't. There are some that help, but when I was talking to Sergio, I was like, hey, I had kind of want to do something like that for cops, but you just get caught up with everything else, and then you just get caught with everything else. And then shortly after Hold the Line, I started seeing that. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally.
But I started doing my own thing with the Kern River Leather and my other side hustle with the laundromat, and it's just a lot. And then being a dad and trying to be a good dad, trying to be a good husband, and trying to be a family man, and trying to get some fishing in, and try to keep it all together. And then being a full-time cop with SWAT and everything else, and it gets to be a lot sometimes. But
let's talk about your Kern River Leather real fast. What is that?
So Kern River Leather, basically, we specialize, although we do sometimes do off stuff with leather, but we specialize on custom leather patch hats, and
which
also
are killer,
and no pads. Which the no pads
you're doing no pads too?
Yeah, so the no pad started, the hats and patches and everything kind of started with my job, because a lot of the cops like morale patches. So I make these no pads right here.
I had no idea.
And
that's cool.
Normally, the cops, they want their badge on the front, and so they'll send me their badge, and I get it put on the front, and I basically make this is the one that we call the large notepad, and then the smaller one holds like a more for patrolmen that are on the street, so it's like a smaller one, holds like a 3x5 notepad.
Yeah.
And when I first started, I wanted to do, wallets. I wanted to do watch bands. I wanted to do keychains. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. But then I quickly realized that it's an art with it when it comes to leatherwork. And again, going back to having a lot on my plate, it's not enough time to do everything. And I realized I had to kind of specialize a little bit more on more niche items. And the hats and the notepads have been the primary source for our income.
Yeah, and you've custom made some hats for my shop.
Yeah, I hope you like them.
I would love them, man. And with the Kern River Fly Shop logo made out of leather on killer hats, it looks amazing. And then golden trout logo on some as well. And they look amazing.
So we focus a lot on like the it branches off into like into a fork basically with the custom work. And then we have our own brand, which with our own logos, and a lot of it's kind of I wanted to stay a little bit away from what I do for a living as far as being a cop. So I kind of wanted to do like the outdoorsy. I've always been an outdoorsman, so I've always been into hunting, fishing, and shooting and stuff like that. But I kind of wanted to stay away from the whole police realm as far as like what's on what has my name on it with the Kern River Leather. So we stuck with the fishing and some hunting and outdoorsy stuff. And then I brought my wife into it, and she had like an art for drawing and making stuff, but she kind of years passed and she forgot about it and put it aside. And then I started doing it, and it kind of sparked the artsy side of her again. And then next thing you know, she's surpassed me on the leather
Really?
skills. Yeah, she makes tooled belts. She'll
really?
make like tooled vans. The Hey Dudes, she'll make custom tooling on those. On Instagram, Kern River Leather, you can see some of her work on there, and she'll make full on belts, completely tooled, all by hand.
Nice, man.
And so she puts in a lot of hours on some of those pieces, but it's been good for us, and the people I've met along the way with the business has been pretty awesome. I've met some cool people and made some good friendships. Yeah.
So they can go to what is it?
KernRiverLeather.com.
Okay.
Or just Kern River Leather on Instagram.
Nice.
And our website, you can email us, you can shoot us a message, and you can buy some of our hats if you're ever interested, or if you want anything custom, if you have your business, we can put your business logo on there.
If you guys check them out, man, they're really cool. The hats are beautiful. The leather work's amazing. I guess ordered a whole bunch of keychains with the Kern River Fly Shop logo on it. They look amazing.
Yeah, all made here in California.
Well, Nestor, I can't believe it's already been an hour. It's crazy. But let's do this again.
Yeah.
That was amazing, man. And thank you for sharing your story. And my podcast is about people and their passions. And, their calling, basically. That's one of the reasons why I asked you, when you were a little kid, if you wanted to be a cop, and you said yes, and you became a cop and a guy on SWAT, and it's pretty amazing. Great story, man. And you're still hustling, doing all these other side things. Yeah. There's work out there if people want to work, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I always say that to people. I mean, there's so much work out there, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
man.
guys at work, there's some guys that don't, their heart isn't in it.
Yeah.
Because they'll ask me. I was off for almost a year. I was actually at a rehab facility for a whole year. Luckily, it was in town, so I got to go home and everything. But from a SWAT call out where we got blown up again, same year, 2020.
Oh, I remember hearing that.
Yeah. And so we were at me and a few other guys from the team were. It's called the Center of Neural Skills because we got traumatic brain injuries out of it from those explosions. And that's a whole nother story right there. But that's what really jacked up my hearing.
Oh, okay.
So I'll have guys like, dude, why are you still here?
Yeah.
You should have just retired.
You just love it.
I'm not ready to let it go yet. I like what I do, and
keep doing it, man.
Yeah, I feel like I bring something to the table when it comes to police work, being on the SWAT team, and I feel like you can make the difference, and somebody can.
Nice, man. Well, let's do this again.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, you guys, if you are listening, definitely check out KernRiverLeather.com, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
It's a Guy Jeans podcast.